Now, most organs come from people who have died, and there is a donor system in place to deal with those. But the medical community has many ethical questions regarding live organ donations, such as who owns the organ and who decides which patient receives a transplant.
From Colorado's News Channel, this is News 4.
A standoff right now between a man with kidney disease and the hospital that was supposed to perform a potentially life-saving transplant. Bob Hickey says if the surgery does not go forward, he will sue. Hello, I'm Stephanie Riggs.
And I'm Larry Green. Bob Hickey's transplant has been on hold since a surgeon at Presbyterian St. Luke's raised ethics concerns. Hickey contacted Robert Smitty through a commercial website. Smitty has agreed to give a kidney. News 4's Mike Hooker joins us from the newsroom. And where does this stand right now, Mike?
No word on that right now, Larry. The excruciating wait continues for these two men. We asked Presbyterian St. Luke's for an on-camera interview about the decision to postpone the transplant, but so far we've only received a written statement from the hospital. The hospital says that lead transplant surgeon Dr. Egal Cam had been out of town prior to the scheduled surgery. Cam decided he didn't know enough about the website called MatchingDonors.com. He had ethical questions. Matching Donors brokered the plan to take a kidney from Rob Smitty and transplant it to Bob Hickey. Now the two men are waiting, while Presbyterian St. Luke's says there is no time frame, no schedule for deciding when and if the surgery might take place.
How could they let something like this blindside them?
It would be illegal for Rob Smitty to accept money or gifts for his kidney. He says he's donating the organ because he wants to do a good thing. But the United Network for Organ Sharing announced its opposition to the transplant back in June, saying MatchingDonors.com exploits vulnerable populations and subverts equitable allocation of organs for transplantation. Because of that statement, Bob Hickey and Rob Smitty are now waiting for the go-ahead on a transplant with new ethical concerns they say should have been raised long before the morning of surgery.
For them to come up at the last minute and say we haven't had enough time to review all the information is absolutely absurd.
While Dr. Khan and Presbyterian St. Luke's sort through concerns about this particular transplant, UNOS, the national donor organization, is also studying the issue. UNOS has formed a subcommittee to study what it calls the emerging phenomenon of private solicitation of organs. It's expected to be a major topic at the group's meeting coming up in November. That's the latest on this transplant. Mike Hooker, News 4.
Does that mean there's not going to be a decision until November, Mike?
Well, no, the hospital is making its decision, we assume, independently of UNOS, but certainly all of this will collectively form a lot of decisions that could affect a lot of people in coming years.
All right. Bob Hickey has needed a kidney transplant since losing a kidney to cancer 5 years ago.
From Colorado's News Channel, this is News 4.
A 5-year quest has come to a happy ending on an operating table in a Denver hospital. 58-year-old Bob Hickey has finally received a potentially life-saving kidney transplant. It is a good afternoon. Hello, I'm Stephanie Riggs.
Yes, it is. I'm Larry Green. Bob Hickey is from Edwards, Colorado. He waited for a new kidney for years before turning to a commercial website. That's where he found Robert Smitty, a truck driver from Tennessee. Smitty agreed to give Hickey one of his kidneys. News 4's Suzanne McCarroll is live at Presbyterian St. Luke's, where the surgery began just a couple of hours ago.
Well, you know, you're right. The surgery, we're told, is going quite well and actually should be wrapping up shortly. It was scheduled to start about 11 this morning, but actually got going at about noon. But what a day it's been. You know, this has been a difficult couple of days for these two men who met via the internet. One to give a kidney, one is receiving the kidney this afternoon. Ryan Smitty is proud of the sacrifice her husband is making for another person. But this morning was tough as the two men headed into surgery.
Yes, I cried when I gave him a kiss and told him I loved him. And I'm just glad he's out, and they said he's doing good, and I just can't wait to see him and give him a hug and a kiss.
The Smitty's 3-year-old son was really glad to get out of the hospital to play in the sunshine for a couple of minutes late this afternoon. He says that his dad promised as soon as he woke up this afternoon in the recovery room, he would give that little boy a kiss and a hug. But again, we're still waiting for final word that the surgery is over. We know that the donor is in the recovery room. We haven't heard yet about the recipient. Back to you in the studio.
All right, let us know. Thanks, Suzanne. Bob Hickey is expected to be hospitalized for the next 4 or 5 days. Robert Smitty should be released in about 2 to 3 days. The commercial website that set up the match has seen a surge in interest since the kidney transplant first made headlines on News 4. The CEO of MatchingDonors.com tells us since Friday, 35 new patients have signed on, bringing the total to 160. 171 new donors are now on the site, bringing that number to 332 potential donors. And the site normally averages 12,000 visitors a week. In the past 2.5 days, it has had 221,535 hits. They say interest has come from every state and almost every country.
Participants in a history-making kidney transplant are recovering right now, and today they had some visitors from Boston. The men who brought Bob Hickey and Robert Smitty together met with the two at Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center. Hickey and Smitty found each other through a website, MatchingDonors.com. News 4's Kathy Walsh is live with more on this special visit.
That's right. It was from the website Founders. MatchingDonors.com was started in January to pair up strangers for life-saving organ transplants. This was its first successful match ever. The ethical controversy almost derailed it, but when the transplant happened yesterday, it made history. And today, the founders of the Massachusetts-based website showed up with Boston Red Sox caps. That's right. They're big fans of the Sox and even bigger fans of the men who've become their first success story. They spent about 45 minutes with kidney recipient Bob Hickey and donor Rob Smitty in what they called a tearful meeting.
They look great. I mean, their spirits are unbelievable. Mr. Smitty is just an amazing, amazing man. We got a chance to meet their wives as well. Of course, we gave them the Red Sox hats, and I think they liked that. So it was a real moving moment. It was fantastic.
Since News 4 first broke the story of the history-making kidney donor match, the website has grown by 35 patients and 171 donors. And the founders today defended their site from criticism from ethicists. They say the fee they charge potential recipients is more like a donation. Many people who can't afford it get on the site for free, and they say they don't make money. In fact, they lose it. They're hoping to make the site a nonprofit.
All right. Thanks, Kathy. Now, today, the hospital would only say the men are in good condition and they could leave PSL sometime this weekend.
The recipient in yesterday's kidney transplant is recuperating tonight at Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center. Bob Hickey met his donor, Robert Smitty, over a website that's called MatchingDonors.com. News 4's Kathy Walsh first broke the story, and I guess some of the folks from the website were here in Denver today.
That's right. They wanted to finally meet the two men they were able to match up. They got to shake Bob Hickey's hand for the very first time, and it was the first time they ever even spoke to the donor, Rob Smitty. They said it was fantastic. Two Massachusetts businessmen showed up in Denver bearing appropriate presents.
We're proud Bostonians, so we had to bring a little gift for the patients.
Patients at Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center, Bob Hickey and Rob Smitty, the duo who made history with the first ever organ transplant set up over a commercial website. The founders of MatchingDonors.com traveled to Colorado to finally meet the men they so admire.
They look great. I mean, their spirits are unbelievable. Mr. Smitty is just an amazing, amazing man.
So amazing, his offer of a kidney prompted ethical questions of whether or not he was getting paid and whether the website was a money-making venture.
We lose money every single month. Every single month. If someone wants to be on the site and they can't afford it, we tell them that we don't charge them.
The founders of the site welcome all the recent publicity. Their potential organ donor list has grown by 171, recipients by 35, and they thank the very generous Rob Smitty.
What Mr. Smitty did was he brought attention to a real important issue, and he's got a lot of people, motivated and active now.
I spoke with Mr. Smitty by telephone today. He's in the hospital. He told me he's in a little pain and has had the hiccups 6 times, a complication of his surgery. He is still very proud of what he's done.
And you told us yesterday almost 250,000 hits on this website since word of this got out.
In 2.5 days.
That's something. All right. Thanks, Kathy. As for the hospital, they will only tell us that both men today are in good condition.